You feel like sometimes you might have like what's important to you is important to everybody, right? But it really isn't. And everybody has sort of like a different like take on it.
And now, coming to you from the K2 studios in San Diego, California, it's the world-famous Chris and Christine Show.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? How you guys doing today? I am Chris.
And I'm Christine, and welcome to episode 47 of the Chris and Christine Show.
Yes, number 47. We're coming up close to that big 5-0.
Yeah, we are. We're rounding out, getting close to the 1 year mark too, Chris.
That's right. Our big 1 year episode's coming up. We got to figure out what we're going to do for that.
Our 1 year anniversary, podcast anniversary.
We've been podcasting for almost a full year.
I know, which means that we're getting really close to have been engaged for a full year already.
Well, that's probably typically the normal range for engagements, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it feels pretty good for us. We're just kind of like getting in our groove finally, right?
And the year 2020 has been a fantastic year so far. Oh, wait, I just woke up.
It keeps throwing us curveballs, right, Chris? And
gosh.
Yet another one was thrown to us just the other day.
What was that?
As we were on our way back from vacation.
Well, please explain.
Oh, well, we got an email from our wedding venue, our wedding chapel, informing us that due to COVID, that there was going to be a decreased allotment of guests that were allowed into the chapel for our wedding, which means we now are faced with cutting our guest list in half.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, people, because we did not plan this whole COVID-19 thing. It was not our fault. I promise you. So the state of Hawaii has, again, also expanded their
social distancing.
Right. Not only did they do that like they're doing here, but they also have cut back on the, they extended the quarantine for 14-day quarantine mandatory for everybody flying into the islands.
Until September 1st. Then they're going to lift it and they're going to put in place a rapid testing protocol. So you'd have to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours before departure.
But you can have that test anywhere. You don't have to have the test there in Hawaii, right?
You can't have it in Hawaii. You have to have it done before you take off. So they're going to be working out a partnership with, I believe it's CVS Pharmacy. They haven't worked out all the details. That's why they delayed the travel ban or the travel restrictions being lifted, because they haven't been able to get all the details in. They needed another month for it.
Well, so hopefully by the time we go in November, they got all the bugs worked out and they got the kinks worked out, and hopefully we can go. That being said, he said the chapel itself is actually making the guest list a lot smaller, so we can't have a full house with 50 people or something.
Well,
max.
So the chapel fit 50 seated, 80 including standing room, and you were allowed to have up to 80. And so we were going to make a full list, and so we have 90 plus people on our list, and of them, like 35 have already purchased tickets and accommodations and are ready to go. But, you know, Chris and I, we were going back and forth after the bathroom fiasco from a couple of weeks ago, and then it's turning into a full bathroom renovation. We were like, well, we have wedding funds set aside, wedding budget funds set aside, but we're going to have to dip into that. So that plus social distancing, we decided we needed to scale back on our wedding reception, and we were going to go with a different plan. But now we've basically cut the reception altogether, right, Chris?
Yeah, the reception, we were going to have it at this restaurant. Not actually, it was going to be reserved a section of the restaurant, I believe, right?
They were closing most of the restaurant down because for their receptions, they're as pricey as they are in San Diego for like a full reception. And we didn't want that, right?
So we were in Hawaii, the group of people that were in Hawaii with us to go to our actual wedding at the chapel, we were going to have, there's a restaurant nearby. I think it's on the same property.
Yeah, same property,
same
just
resort,
on the water.
On like the beachfront side. And they had a big second story restaurant, I believe, overlooking the water with fireworks when it went off on Fridays, I think. And so we were going to have it there. We talked to them. We reserved a section of the restaurant, reserved the whole thing, put money down too.
Right.
And that was a plan to have moved the party over to like more like a dinner, casual dinner, Hawaii, fancy restaurant kind of a thing.
Right. And so then we started to rethink and we were like, well, social distancing requirements are going to be in play. So instead of doing a reception, what we were thinking is that there was this beachside shrimp truck. In Hawaii, they're famous for their food trucks and like their shrimp trucks.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, their shrimp trucks, their shaved ice trucks. And there was one that we loved when we went that was right there on property. And we thought, well, maybe we'll contract with them. And, we know that there's a couple people with food allergies, but for the vast majority, we can all order something simple and scaled back and then do like a picnic on the beach and socially distance. But we haven't heard back from the owners of the food truck because we think that they're closed up shop right now. Who knows?
Yeah, it's true, huh?
Yeah, who knows if they're going to go back into business.
This COVID is really ruining my plans.
I know. So, we are committed to getting married in Hawaii and we know it's going to be small. I wouldn't say it's to the level of an elopement, but we're getting pretty close to that. But we are going to have our immediate family and then a couple of very, very close friends.
Right. Anybody who's bought a ticket right now. So we have to start whittling down who has not purchased a ticket yet. We probably have to say, hold off on that. I'm sorry. Blame COVID. Don't blame me. It's not my fault this time.
Exactly. But we had already discussed that we wanted to maybe in the spring of 2021, like after COVID and flu season pass, having like an open house get together here at the house where everybody gets to meet Chris or potentially at my parents' house up in Central California, because a lot of my extended family, I'm from a Mexican background. We have a very big family. And that's why the list, like we were looking at the list and Chris is like, oh my gosh, there's like almost 100 people on here. Well, only like 15 or 20 of them were friends.
That's why I actually picked Hawaii in the first place. Because I know when you pick a far distant wedding, destination wedding, that most people probably can't make it out there. So it kind of, by nature of itself, it whittles the list down.
Right. The hard thing, though, is like, well, thankfully, we'd already gone scaled back. Like we weren't going really big with like centerpieces for the wedding or anything like that. We were keeping it very simple. But we had just decided to splurge and pay for a wedding cake, a small wedding cake. So what we'll do is, I'm thinking, Chris, and I'm just throwing this out there. I haven't talked to you about this before. Do you remember at the bottom of that hotel tower where we stayed, how there was a bar right there?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's right next to the wedding chapel. And I'm thinking maybe we can contact the hotel because it's an outdoors and people can distance. Maybe we just do like a cocktail hour and cake.
Well, yeah, it sounds great. But the problem is that we really don't know what they're okay with,
right.
what's even open.
Well, they're not open right now.
If you can recall, we were just in Vegas just the other day.
Ugh.
And most of the places were closed.
It was eerie.
It was the weirdest, most craziest, weirdest, uncomfortable Vegas trip I've ever been on in my entire life.
Right? It was like the total opposite of what Vegas normally is. I mean, we were able to make the most of it, and grateful that my best friend joined us, and we'll talk more about that on our next episode. But it was hard to even just find food options for us that were family friendly.
Right, because a lot of places were closed, and all the bars were closed, of course. The casinos were open; a few of them were. Well, I think some were closed, but
all the quick grab restaurants, anything that was family friendly. I mean, it was a real stretch for us to find any place for our family of 5 to have a basic meal for under $100.
Oh yeah, totally. And then also, if you're gambling, I didn't see any of the casino tables even open.
Right.
Like none of them were open.
Exactly.
It was weird.
It was really eerie.
Gosh.
But we're going to talk more about that on a later episode. And, what we did do is we had our very first family vacation. And that's something, we've gone like 2 days to Disneyland or things like this, but this was our very first extended family vacation. And it allowed us to learn a lot about each other and a lot about how we function as a family unit. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about with our special guest today, who's going to help us learn about building your own unique family culture. And she's going to be right on with us after this.
Hey there, K2 crew. We love having you as our loyal listeners.
To keep up to date with what's happening behind the scenes, check us out on social media.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter.
And don't forget to follow our Facebook page.
Yeah, tag us in your favorite fun stories, and guess what? You might just end up on the show.
Ooh.
And welcome back, everybody. And today, our very special VIP guest happens to be another podcaster, a self-help coach, and she does a podcast with her husband. Please welcome to the show, Kimberly Amici.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. We're super excited that you were able to join the Chris and Christine show. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And where in the world are you joining us from, Kimberly?
So I live in New Jersey.
Ooh.
So, it's it's a hot one today. It's fantastic. We've lived here probably for about 17 years. We were in New York City previous to that. So we did the whole like living the big city life, got pregnant, moved to the burbs. And yeah, we've been here ever since.
Were you in like what part of what boroughs were you in?
So we lived in Manhattan, and we were in sort of like the Midtown areas, actually just south of Midtown in the 30s. So they call it Murray Hill.
Murray Hill, huh?
Ooh, yeah. I love New York City. I've been several times, and I always wondered what life was like living in the big city. Let us know. What was that like?
So it was fun. There's like such an energy that you constantly experience when you live in a big city like that. I moved there. I was dating my husband. We were dating long distance. We had met when I came up to visit. I was coming up for like a design conference. My background is in design and architecture.
Oh, wow.
And I came up to meet him. I came up for work, and of course I met him. He was a friend of a friend out at a bar, got to know each other. A couple months later, kept in touch, saw each other again when I came back to visit. And so we started this long distance relationship. And when I moved, it was very exciting, but we hadn't really quite dated a year. And I had some people joke around with me like, you should really date somebody a full year before you move to their location. You need to know what the weather is like all the time. Because are you sure you want to move there? Because I moved there from Atlanta, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is cold. I mean, I grew up in the north.
What's snow like? You see snow for the first time, huh?
Well, no, I grew up in the north, but I had spent time down there. And then when you move to a city, you have to walk everywhere. Like even if you're on the subway's cold, and you have to get to the subway. Well, it's like it's freezing in the winter, and there's these wind tunnels, and like you're just like putting your head down, trying to get to the subway, trying to get to work. And then, I mean, it's not all horrible, but it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it would be like this. And then, when you're doing your Christmas shopping, it's like you're on the subway with all these bags.
Oh,
it's cold. It's like a different sort of life, right? Everything's on foot. Even grocery shopping, now you can do delivery, but when we lived there, it was like all about getting a shopping cart that you could drag behind you and load up and like walk up the hill.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, like it was, you had to adjust. There was a lot of adjustment. And so when we moved to the burbs, it was kind of like
the burbs,
right? Like I didn't have to wear my heavy coat. I could just throw something on real quick to pop into the grocery store. Just pop in my car, pop in the grocery store. I didn't have to like walk 10 blocks to get somewhere.
And that's so cool.
It was so fun to live in the city. But like as you got older, and that the thought of having kids, you're kind of like, yeah, this is going to get a little harder.
Yeah, I remember visiting New York City one time during the winter, and I was used to California cold, nowhere near New York cold. And so I had like a light jacket, and I walked out of, I think it was the LaGuardia airport, and I stepped one foot out on the concrete, and I was like, there was men, like there was vendors right there, and they had like not jackets, like scarves and gloves. I was like, yes, please.
Did it say did it say California travelers, please shop here?
No, it was so cold. And then that on that trip, a couple days into it, there was a blizzard that came in, and it like coated the city in 5 inches of snow. And I was like, what is happening?
My gosh,
I don't even know how to prepare for this. So
yeah, and then it's beautiful for like an afternoon, and then the next day it turns to slush because it's the city. So it's beautiful when it first snows, but then the day after, because there's so much traffic and so many cars in this city, like it turns black and dark real fast. And so you have, the beautiful snow someday, but then you have the reality of like the traffic and the people and the slush. And so it's quite an adventure.
Yeah,
wow.
Definitely. Well, so you moved out into the suburbs into New Jersey area. Now, I'm not really familiar with the geography of New Jersey. So like what area?
It's next to New York. It's like right across the river or something, right?
Well, but it's a state. So like what area of New Jersey do you live in?
We're about 12 miles outside the city. So my husband currently commutes into the city, not during obviously COVID, but so it's about like if I were to pop in the car, it's about 20 minutes from here to the tunnel, which would get me into the city. And then once you get in the city, it's a different story, but depending on like the time of day, how long it takes you to get places.
Right.
So we're pretty close. It's easy for me to pop in and take the train in and meet my husband after work for dinner. For a long time, we had our pediatrician there because we loved her. So it's very, very close. We live very close to the city, and most of the people in our town commute. It doesn't feel like a different state because like
so close.
So many people work there. It's so close. Yeah. So it's definitely like fun to go into the city. And even where I live, if you go down one or two of the side streets, you'll see views of the city. You
that's
can see
amazing.
the city from here. Yeah.
That's great. Now, I have a question, real estate wise. The prices to live in New Jersey are probably much cheaper than Manhattan, I would assume.
They are cheaper. You get way more for your money.
So is that why a lot of people do that? They'll live in New Jersey, then they'll work in Manhattan or New York City, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, we sold our 1-bedroom apartment 17 years ago and bought a home for the same price. So like a three-bedroom home with a basement, first floor, second floor with 3 bedrooms, and then a third floor like livable space. So that gives you a little bit of an idea.
Wow. That's incredible.
So, and then you get a backyard, then you get a driveway and a garage, and
Right. Well, we feel like that's a similar story, maybe not to that same magnitude, but we live in the burbs of San Diego. And so downtown San Diego is really shot up in terms of gentrification, and a lot of like young tech industry are moving into downtown, and you can buy a studio condo right in Little Italy, and it's going to run you $3,500, $4,000 a month for a studio. You can buy a house 15 minutes outside of town. That's
crazy.
Palatial for that price, but
it's just the way it goes.
Right. Yeah, we empathize with that. But the whole purpose for moving to the burbs was to have a family. So tell us a little bit about your family background.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we have 3 children right now. We have they're 13, 15, and 17. So we are knee deep in the teen years, but I have to tell you, I am loving it. I really am enjoying my kids. Yeah.
Really?
It's so fun. You're like, really?
Well, I have a 15-year-old boy, and I do love this age. Now, it's definitely something that poses different challenges.
I like more of the age where you get to carry him everywhere and swing him around. Like, it's going to swing set. And you're pushing him. I like that age,
Yeah.
with a little buddy.
You know what? I definitely have chosen to take the perspective of like, I'm getting a front row seat to seeing them become an adult, right? Now more than ever before. And they're making mistakes, 100%. They're doing things I'm not 100% thrilled with, but I'm there to guide them, to coach them, to come alongside them. And that to me is fun, instead of trying to control them and make sure that they never make a mistake, or make sure that they never embarrass themselves, or make sure that they make all the right choices is just too hard. But just to be able to kind of see them wrestle with who they're becoming, just encouraging them. And also I've kind of like stepped back where I'm, like I said, more of a coach, where I'm just like, hey, I'm going to make a suggestion. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what I think you can do. And they don't always take my advice, but then they learn from it. And I'm just trying to give myself grace to be like, I want you to make these mistakes under my roof, because once you're outside, once you go to college, and, there's still a bit of a protection when you're in college, but once you're out, you're out. And so if you make these mistakes when you're on your own, like, I can't help you. Like, you know what I mean? Not really, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And, we've had several different people that speak about family on the podcast, but typically they're more early childhood. So that's, we were super fascinated with bringing you on the show, hoping that maybe you could provide us a little bit of insight, as, we have one teenager and then we have an 8 and a 10-year-old in the household. How do we navigate that? So you have 3 teenagers, and you also have this other really cool project that you do in addition to that with families. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so I have a podcast and a business. It's called Build Your Best Family. And what we do is we help families create culture. So what I've found and what I've learned, I've done a lot of reading, and the research says that family culture has more to do with the development of your children than actual like parenting styles. So when I work with families, it's not about like necessarily tips and tricks, but it's about understanding your culture. What are your values? What's important to you? What is it that you want your family to be known for? How do you want to live? What is your mission together? And so from there, then you can start to figure out the how. Then you can figure out like what choices to make and how to parent, because you have a purpose and a mission and even the end in mind as you're parenting. And so the things that we've done with the kids when they're little may change in every season. How I address them, how I parent them will change. What we do to maintain our family's culture will change, but the values and what's important to us stays the same.
That's super interesting, this concept of culture. So a little bit of background on Chris and I know that you've listened to our podcast a bit, but we are in the process of blending families, and we're looking to get married in November of 2020 if Hawaii opens back up from quarantine.
Hope so. We'll see.
But we are in the short-term future getting married. And so we've come to this having two distinct, different family cultures and figuring out like what is it that's going to bond us together. So can you walk us through how you start working with families and like how you enter into this conversation around culture?
Yeah. So one of the first things that we do is we talk about what is it that you want your family to be known for. And so we look at our past, what we experienced growing up, which we tend to sort of mimic those things that we did just because that's the way it's always been done. But what is it about our past that we want to bring forward? What is it that we want to do new? What do we want people to think of when, they hear our name? That vision casting process of like, who do we want to be as a family?
Oh, and once are you talking like do people actually try to throw out like TV show families as like an example, like this family or that family or whatever? It's like an example.
They could, and sometimes they have, but it's like, but that's okay because it's like, okay, so this is. What I would say is, well, what is it that you like about that family? What is it that appeals to you about that family?
Oh, okay.
Why is that your model? And then they'll tell me, well, because they always have fun together, or because they always eat dinner together, or they always seem like, they argue, but they always get along, like they always make up at the end, So what is it that inspires you, and what is it that you're looking to take on for your family?
That's super interesting. So what are some of the things that you hear from families that they want to be known for, just anecdotally? Yeah.
So, typically, the first thing a lot of people think of, like, well, we want to be kind, and we want people to, all the stuff that you're supposed to say.
Right.
We want to be kind. We want to be loving. But as you get to talking to people, you'll find that there's other things that they want to be known for. So, for example, like our family, we want to be known for having an open door. We want people to know that they can stop by at any time. And so we also want people to know that they're welcome here. And we want people to feel better about themselves when they leave than when they came.
Ooh, I like that.
So when you start to have these conversations, you start to break down what are those things, right? And then you can go to the next step and you can say, well, what does that mean for us? Like, what's next? Like, how do we do that? And so for us, if we want to have an open door policy, if we want to have people come to our home, if I want my daughter to have her friends come over any day they want after school, I'm going to have to adjust my grocery budget.
Oh,
I'm going to have to like have food in the house, right?
Are you talking to them like living with you? Like anytime they want? Like moving on in? Everybody moves in. Come on, we got room.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there's been times when we, like my kids know that the answer is going to be yes if a handful of their friends want to come over after school. And the answer is going to be yes. You can raid the pantry because we want to have a home where people feel comfortable. We want to have a home that's a safe haven for our kids' friends that might be going through a rough time.
Do you leave like a tip jar next to the pantry?
Oh my gosh, I wish.
Especially with teenagers. No, I totally can connect with what you're saying, because when I think back to my childhood and growing up, my mom referred to our house as the Kool-Aid house. Like everybody comes in and gathers around the island, and she felt that it was important, and my dad, that it was better for us to be at home with our friends than being somewhere else on the streets, right? Yeah. Getting into trouble. So I get how that could be like a core value for a family.
Yeah.
But like I would say, Chris, for him and I'm just speaking out loud. One of the things that I know that we prioritize with our boys is like setting really big goals and like just getting after them, whatever it is, whether it's in savings or for us, like with our podcast, or even like financial goals for us as a household or vacations. Like we try to be driven as a family. Have you heard that come up before?
Oh, for sure. I mean, people, it's interesting because you feel like sometimes you might have like what's important to you is important to everybody, right? But it really isn't. And everybody has sort of like a different like take on it. So where one family may be very goal oriented, it may be like we want to set up goals for our kids and we want them to achieve them. Other families are like we want them to set the goals for themselves and then we want to support them in it. And so as you get to hear and talk to families, you'll find out that they like to reach their goals differently, set their goals differently. Like I love some families that I work with, they're like, we have these mantras, and these mantras are like, about expectations, about how we want to show up, about doing hard things, about, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of thought around how people want to live as a family. And so when they come to me and they bring these ideas, we break them down because we also want to know, well, what does that look like to goal set? So if you're big on goals, what does that mean? Do you just have a lot of goals? Do you check in with each other every other month? Do you
She has that vision board she posted on the wall, that goal vision board. You ever heard of that thing? What was that?
Oh, it's a family vision board. Yeah, we created a family vision board this year where everybody has a section of it and we all contributed. And in the center, we have things that we're going to accomplish as a family. Like how many family dinners do we want to have together? How many like one-on-one dates with each kid do we want to be able to do? DIY projects, things like that. But on the sides are our individual things that we want to accomplish. So that definitely,
and that's fantastic.
Yeah, that definitely connects with us.
Yeah,
what you're saying.
I love what you were saying about like how many times do we want to eat dinner? What together? What is it that it looks like? Because a lot of people have in their mind what they think their values are, and a lot of the work that we do is based on what we see in organizations and how they create culture. So if you go into an office, you might see a poster on the wall that has a list of values, and those are great words, but those tend to be abstract. And so what we like to do too is to help people break them down and be like, okay, so that you say that you want to live connected. What does that mean to you? Well, we want to eat dinner, at least 3 days a week. All right. Well, then that becomes a family practice. We start to break down those values into practices so that not only do we know how to achieve them, but then we can celebrate them once we have achieved them. Right. And it's those small steps over time that we can then measure that produces the success. And then you can look back and be like, yeah, we really lived out our values. We just didn't say that was important to us, but then didn't have anything to back it up.
Yeah, I really like that. It's like, how do you know you've been effective at building a stronger family over the year? Like if it's just like with organizational culture, and I'm in a doctoral program around organizational leadership. And so I think of it like that. You have to set goals and know that you're actually working towards them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, super interesting. So you also have a podcast. What is your podcast name?
So the podcast name is called Build Your Best Family as well. And so what we do is we talk about, my husband and I, he talks about his experience in the workplace and what culture is like and how they build culture. We talk about leadership. We talk about goal setting and planning. We talk about family meetings. We talk about all the components that make an organization strong. And we help families take those principles and use them in their home. So we'll do podcasts occasionally together, and then we rotate in interviews with people who are creating culture. Like we've interviewed someone who was a Navy SEAL and how they've created culture. We're interviewing people that have written books about connection with their family, conversations with their family, how to grow, strong families. But we don't limit it to that. We limit it to people that are successful in the area they're in, so we can examine the principles that they're using and apply those to families.
That's great. You said that was your husband, Carl? You guys do the podcast together?
Yep.
Oh, that's great. Now, you guys do it from the same place, or you guys remotely when you do it?
So we do it from the same place. We do it occasionally. We started out trying to do it much more often together. But since he works full-time outside of the house, I was like, how about we just do it once a month together?
Okay. So you release it once a month?
Well, it's a weekly podcast. So it's mixed in with interviews. So we'll kind of do like a back and forth.
Oh, I see. Because when Christine and I started doing it, Christine was traveling for work a lot too, and we're trying to do the same thing, keep it going, and we're trying to figure out a way to do it
remotely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
it for you because we skipped it like a week or two. We skipped, and I felt so bad about it. So I doubled down and started doing extra episodes the following week.
Yeah.
But
sometimes what you have to do.
Yeah. So you mentioned Carl and that he joins you and you talk about culture. Now, what's his background?
So he works in finance. So he works for a bank, and he's been in finance, his whole entire career. And so he's had a number of different positions. He's been with several different companies, but he does have, I think he's been with this company for almost 17, 18 years now in different departments. And so he's seen like different departments, how they work, why they work, what's not working about them. And so as you stay in a company that long and you can kind of move from position to position, you can really get a sense for what it takes to really be successful in business.
That's amazing. And so bringing all of that culture work into, and both of your experiences into your own home, and it sounds like you've been doing this culture work internally as well as externally. What would be your hope that as your children become adults and start their own lives and families, what would be your hope that they're able to say about what their childhood was like growing up as a result of this work?
Well, I would love for them to know that they were a part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that's important for them to know now, that as they're in this home, but also when they leave. It's important for them to know now because they have something that anchors them and keeps them connected both to us and to a common purpose. I know that their values may change as they get older. Not necessarily change, but if they have their own family and they have a spouse, they may decide on a different set of values, a different combination, taking from both sides what works for them together as a family. They may have their own individual ones and then bring them together as a family. So I want them to know that they're a part of something now and that they're going to be a part of something in the future. As my kids get older and they start to date, lucky I haven't had much of that yet. But I'm hoping that they understand like what would be a cultural fit for our family. I mean, you don't have to be exactly like our family, but if there's things that we know to the core that are important to us, we're going to look for those in other people. We're also going to say, hey, like my family loves games. So if you never want to be around people, that's probably not going to work for us. Right. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I hope that they have the tools to make really good decisions. And they're not just spending time with people for the sake of spending time with people and like maybe hoping that initial attraction translates into something that they kind of say, this is what I'm known for. This is what we're known for. This is what I love to do. These are the kind of people I love to be around. And I certainly want them to understand the impact and the influence they can have on other people by knowing what it is that they stand for and being able to come alongside people in what they stand for.
I have a quick question here about kids as they get older. Your kids are, what's your oldest kid's age again?
She's 17.
17. So not quite graduated high school yet, but when they start to graduate high school and a little bit beyond that, at what age do you feel is kind of like what are you looking at me like that, Christine?
I'm laughing at him because this is his question of every parent is, when do you kick him out of the nest?
Yeah, there you go.
I've talked about this with my daughters. So because we live so close to New York City, I have a couple of friends whose daughters have graduated and they've come home and they've lived at home and they've commuted into the city because it is quite expensive to live in the city.
Oh, yeah.
And so I do to a certain degree feel as though if you're home, but you're busting your butt because you're saving money for your house so that you don't have to like finance the whole thing, like I'm all on board with that. I guess for me, it would be a question of how much responsibility are you taking for your own life?
Right.
And if living here and still being, under the same roof is helping you to lay a foundation for your future, then I'm all for that. I'm not in a rush to, for them to get out of the house. I think it'll just be dependent upon like the life stage and where they're at and what's going on. COVID, I know so many people whose children came home.
Right.
Oh, really?
They're like, I'm not going to sit at home in my apartment by myself in quarantine when I could come home and like be with my family.
Right.
And so I know people that are secretly thrilled that their kids are home.
Really? Don't tell anybody. The word got out.
Yeah. Well, Chris and I have had frequent conversations about this because my parents allowed me to live at home for as long as I wanted to, but the expectation was that I would maintain above a 3.0 in college and I would have a job and that I could live at home for free, but I was in charge of all of my other expenses like car insurance, even tuition. And so I think that's one of the things that we talk about is we're trying to wrestle through, I have a 15-year-old and again,
He's got some time.
Right. We have the 8 and the 10-year-old, but what's our philosophy going to be around that? But then again, how are we raising kids that want to be independent when they get that ability?
And the problem too is, I don't know if the same problem is there it is here, is a lot of kids, they will not want to leave because, it's free rent and free food and mom does my laundry, but I'm driving a Porsche, so it's all, I can't really afford a rent right now because I got the Porsche payment. So
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we definitely have been giving our kids responsibilities. Like as they get older, they're definitely expected to do chores, to chip in the house. Like it's not a negotiable. Like you are part of this family. You are, again, back to culture. Like we can't do this without you. Like, so we'll host a party or we'll have their friends over. And I'm like, not for nothing, but we can't do this without everybody's help. So I need you to chip in. I need you to be, we can't do the things we do if we're all not on the same team. And one of the things that we've done with our kids is at different stages of their development, we've given them money to budget. And so, like, for example, once you hit 13 in our house, we set up a checking account and we give you all the money that we would normally spend on you in a year. And it's up to you to manage it.
In
and so
one
they
chunk?
will go. Yeah. So they will go.
How you get to mathematically figure that out, that whole number?
Well, for a long time, after I became a stay-at-home mom, we really kept a tight budget. So I had an idea of like what money was going out where. So we had done that for a long time, and so I had a sense of like, okay, this is the amount of money we want to spend on you for clothing. This is the amount of money that we would probably give you to go out with your friends. This is the money that we would. I give them money also to take me to lunch once a month because I'm teaching them to like
take you
budget
to
money.
lunch?
I love that.
Well, we started when my oldest was in second grade, I started to take my kids out for one-on-one lunch dates. I would go pick them up from school because I was finding that 3 kids all wanting my attention. It was extremely difficult. None of them were getting the one-on-one attention that they wanted. And so I started doing these lunch dates with them. And then at a certain point, I was like, okay, I'm going to give you $17 a month. And that's, I know it's probably similar in California. It's enough to get lunch, but it's not enough to go crazy. So like you can take me, like 1 month we can go out for sushi, but then the next month we've got to go out for pizza. But I want them to make that decision because they're managing that $17.
Oh, I like that.
So as they got older, I started giving them more responsibility. So that's why that lunch date's in there.
Well, I love that you said the age that you did that because our chickadees are like fiending to get some financial flexibility. So
my 10-year-old wants a checking account already.
But we are trying out with a 15-year-old a children's debit card, but it has some parental controls on it. But I'm getting him started a little bit later in life on that. So this is very intriguing.
Yeah. And so what they have to do is I'm encouraging them to go to each month, go to the ATM, take out the money that you would need for that month and put it in cash envelopes. So you get to decide, like, do you want to go to Starbucks once and get like a large Frappuccino and a croissant? Or do you want to go, once a week, and get a small drink just so that you can be with your friends? So they start to see, oh, wow, I've got to make decisions. I just can't have an endless pot of money to spend time with my friends.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of kids, a lot of kids who do live at home that I've ran in my experience, even growing up, they, like I said, their parents would just spoil them. And then it gets really hard when it becomes, I have a coworker who's, he paid for his daughter's car even after he told they made the decision. Him and his daughter and his wife said, okay, after you get a job, you're paying the payments. And 2 years later, who's still paying the payments? Not her.
Gosh.
Right.
But
you're right that it's setting them up for success early, but like calculated risk. I applaud you for the way that you approach it with the checking accounts starting from a young age, because it does teach fiscal conservatism and it holds them accountable.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm right there yet, but I'm taking that first step of the debit card for our 15-year-old.
Yeah. Well, even before 13, I said, okay, I'm going to give them money to manage for their clothing, because that's a thing that can just get crazy. And so like when my son was my youngest, he just became, he just turned 13. So it's really the summer before their freshman year. So like I will give him every 4 months, I will give him a certain amount of money for clothing, and he gets to choose how he spends it. So he's not getting like the big chunk of money. He's getting, this is your envelope. But when he was like maybe, like 10, I would keep the envelope. We would go to the store, and then he would physically see, okay, there's no more money left in the envelope. We're done shopping, or here you have enough money to do this. So like I was still allowing them to budget based on their ability, but I would keep the money, but it would be in an envelope and they would know where it was, and they would know that that's a finite amount of money. And it's just progressed.
Do you think that caused them to be more frugal with their spending choices?
Oh my gosh. As soon as, honestly, the reason why I started it was because I didn't know how to make decisions about what I should spend on and who. I had the first child, I was like, oh my gosh, I get to give them all the things my parents couldn't give me. And then when I had the second, I'm like, and then when I had the third, I'm like, okay, this is a little out of control. So I needed to create parameters for me to make decisions too. And so as I would teach them how to spend money, what was happening is they became really, really thoughtful about how they spent their money. Even one point, my daughters, when they were very young, we went to Target and they hatched a plan. They were like, okay, so we don't really know, like they would take much, much longer to make, consumer choices, but they would go, I don't have enough money for that. And then I don't know how they started it, but one of them went to the other and was like, I don't have enough money for this. Would you like to pay half and we would share it?
Okay.
So they started seeing like, well, we can get what we want, but we have to like come up with a solution. And even when now, over the years, as we've cleaned out their rooms, we spring clean and get rid of stuff, they're like, oh, remember this? I had to have this, and now I'm getting rid of it. And so they buy less now, even because they know how temporary it is. They have firsthand experience with the fact that like, maybe I don't need all this stuff, which has been a fun surprise.
You're blowing my mind right now, Kimberly, because I have an older sister. She's 5 years older than me, named Kimberly, actually. And there's 4 girls in our household, but fighting over clothing was like, it was like street fighting. Like, don't wear my shirt. The biggest fight my older sister and I ever had was over, she wanted to wear my Birkenstocks, but they were on my feet. So I told her, let me wear yours because I'm about to walk out the door. Biggest fight ever. So what you're saying, like, this is... Friends, if you're listening right now to the podcast and you want to know how to raise girls right, have them learn how to invest in clothing together so that it's shared. Because
I don't think you guys should share it, though. You girls don't share over clothing very well.
Yes,
we do.
Really? My girls do. Not all the time. I mean, they have favorites, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going in to purchase something together, then like, we're going to have to discuss this, and it's going to have to be equal sharing. I think that's like a whole different level of building a relationship and like relationship skills for the future, teaching girls how to share clothes. So like, write a book about that. Seriously, Kimberly, because that's genius.
Gosh, I should. I've seen some knockout drag down fights here. Typically over the clothes, I have me and my husband still have like these random t-shirts from college, and so they've taken them all, and they fight over those because nobody bought them, right? They're mom and dad's, and I'm going to wear it today, and it belongs.
It's a freebie. It's free.
In my room, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, it is a T-shirt from 1996. Are you kidding me?
Way back in the day. My goodness.
So funny. Well, this has been super interesting, and I love what you talked about with building a family culture and finding out what it is that drives you. And I think that for me, that really resounds with me because it's kind of I wouldn't say simplistic formula, but it's easy to connect with, like asking, what do we want to be known for? What's your family brand, basically?
Yeah.
So where can our friends, our listeners find you on social media, and where can they find your podcast?
So my podcast is on buildyourbestfamily.com. I also write at kimberlyamici.com. That's more of like a smattering of all the different things I'm involved in. I love to hang out on Instagram, and that's at buildyourbestfamily and also at Kimberly Amici. And if you go to either one of my websites, you can find a download sheet about how to get the discussion going about what you want your family to be known for. And I'll give you a link that you can go to, and it'll even have a discussion sheet that you can get your kids involved, because kids, even at a very young age, understand brand, understand what it is that we're known for. They can tell you, throw a family name out there, and they can tell you exactly what they think of when they think of those people. And so getting the kids involved in that is really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. And I love this concept. And I think that this is something that Chris and I are going to bring back with our boys and talk deeper about. But I do have one final question for you. As you are a parent of teenagers, and it sounds like you're pretty active in social media, do you TikTok?
I don't. I've been on the fence. I think it's something that I would really, really like. I mean, I take a hip hop class. They never want to see me dance, though.
That sounds right up your alley. It sounds like TikTok.
I know. I grew up listening to club music out on Long Island.
Yes!
Like, for sure want to be on there. But I've kind of stayed off because it is where their friends are. And they already have quite a number of friends that look at my Instagram posts, and it becomes lunch table conversation, the things that I'm posting online. And so I can't imagine what would happen if I was on TikTok.
Well, they just can't handle it, because Kimberly, with your hip hop moves, you'd be TikTok famous in a heartbeat. And so you're just, you're preserving their popularity, because, nobody wants mom to have more followers than them. So way to take one for the team.
I know.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Kimberly. We wish you all of the best of luck with what you're doing with families. It is really helping families to not just stick together, but to really thrive. And so for that, we thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, Kim.
With so many podcasts out in the world, you have a plethora of options. Take a chance with Too Many Captains, a movie podcast. Mixing comedy with an academic look at film and Hollywood culture, this podcast is perfect for those looking for a fresh perspective. From deep dives into classic films to debates on digital streaming versus physical media and film discussions based on randomly chosen topics in our What Are We Talking About segments, there's something to satisfy all your movie podcast cravings. So if you're feeling lucky or feel the need for speed, grab your shaken martini or some fava beans and a nice Chianti and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Google Play. For more content, visit amoviepodcast.com. Find us on Instagram at Too Many Captains Productions and on Twitter at It's a Film Podcast. Too Many Captains, the jolliest bunch of podcasters this side of the nut house.
So I really loved that interview. I loved that she had a focus more on like preteens and teenagers, because I think it aligns more with where we're at, and really focusing on like defining what it is that your family stands for.
That's right. Yeah, she does. I really appreciate her coming on the show.
Yeah. And so I was wondering, like, I've been kind of working through this in my head. Like, what is it that we stand for as a family? Like, what would you say?
I don't know. Probably, I would say make sure everybody's on the same page. I think it's probably everyone says that too, making sure everybody gets along, that we're not fighting, that I know we butt heads a lot on ideas, and everybody comes from different backgrounds. So we're trying to blend those all together. And it makes it very hard, because in our situation, it's different than most others. Oh, actually, it's different than mostly like the common basic family dynamic that you think of when you think of mom, dad, two kids
that were born and raised together.
Right. Born and raised together, same house, same roof. They grew up in the same town, same kids, same friends. So this is different for us, because you come from a different part of the country and I come from a different part of the country, and we both
or the state.
state. Well, I'm trying to make it dramatic here, okay? So, and then my kids, you know, they were with me, but my ex-wife and I split up. So we both share different sides, you know, different custody things where she has them certain days of the week and I have them certain days of the week. And then you and Ezekiel, you guys share custody both. I mean, you and your ex-husband share custody with Ezekiel separate times of the week.
Right.
So we all have these different dynamics, all trying to be pulled together as one unit. It feels like almost like a classroom.
Right. Sometimes it does. But I would say that one of the things that I've been reflecting on about this interview and specifically our family, because we just did come out of vacation, is that one of the things that you and I have in common is helping our kids learn how to tackle hard things without melting down, because you and I have both overcome significant adversity, overcome like being knocked down and really putting in the hard work to build this beautiful life for ourselves that we're able to blend together. And I think like as a parent, more than anything, what I want to see is my child, our children, to be able to face difficult situations and not to see them as so overwhelming that they give up. Like, I want them to be resilient.
Yeah, I guess I can see what you're saying. Please elaborate.
Oh, well, we hear about in the media about kids being so entitled and wanting everything handed to them.
Oh, I hate those, by the way.
And not working for anything. And I think that
those are the worst, man.
One of the things that we're trying to model for our kids through, you know, chores and contributing to the family and really calling them out when their attitude is really off is this concept of we're all in this together and it's going to take hard work to make it work. And we have to be willing to put in that hard work.
Yeah, we're all on the same team here. And our goal is to, be together and be loving and to be a family and actually grow and teach the kids that responsibility means something. It's not just a word, and that you are all on the same team to help out. And
I think learning to fight fair is a big lesson that all of us are trying to learn, because we get triggered, we get emotional, the kids get triggered and emotional and they lash out at each other, or you and I have a disagreement, and it takes a lot of discipline to not hurt each other in the midst of a disagreement. And I think that that's one of the other things is like learning how to fight fair and to, like you said, remember we're on the same team.
That's right. That's right. Well, this last week, by the way, we are on vacation week.
I know. Can you hear it in our voices? Vacation mode.
We're like dragging it around vacation week because this whole last week I've been on vacation, and we've both been on vacation, and we've been out of town. We got back into town, a day ago?
Last night.
No, it wasn't last night.
Yes, it was.
Was it last night?
Day before.
See, we're on vacation mode. We don't even know what day it is anymore. But all I know is that next week, I got to go back to work. By the time this drops.
Same here.
Yeah, we're going back to work, starting fresh all over again. But we have a fantastic story of our vacation, and we're going to share with you on a special episode that we're going to create. As soon as we're done making this one, we're going to create a very special episode, breaking all it down.
Right. And I think that's where we're going to be able to share a little bit more of the memories and go a little bit more in depth as to like what we did and how we moved through that week. And I had so much fun, and I'll talk about that in the next episode because I don't want to give it all away here, but it's hot tease for you all.
Hot tease. And we want to say thank you for listening, and thank everybody for listening. And if you would like to go check out more about the Chris and Christine Show, you can go to
chrisandchristineshow.com.
That is chrisandchristineshow.com with a K. And if you want to see our very special YouTube video I put up just an hour ago of the trip, of the vacation, it is on the page, right on there, front page, right down there where the YouTube videos are at. You will see it.
Yep, absolutely. And so we thank you for sticking with us this week, and we hope you got a lot out of this wonderful interview that we had. We can't wait for you to hear what's coming up in our special bonus episode. See you there. Remember this week that life is too short to wake up in the morning with regret.
So love the people who treat you right, forget about the ones who don't, and believe that everything happens for a reason.
If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said that it would be easy.
They just promised it would be worth it. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Chris.
And I'm Christine. And until next week,
keep moving forward.